Hi everybody. So we are learning about radial balance, and this is one of our options for a project is our painted mandala rocks. And so we remember, you do not have to do the painted rocks. This is just one choice. So if you don't have rocks or paint available, you can choose another fun activity for this week. This is just a choice. And so I have these out here because this is kind of a little hobby that I have, is just painting rocks. It's kind of how I relax sometimes. And so these are some of mine, and you can see that every single one has some type of circular pattern, even if it doesn't start completely in the center and work its way out. Some of them have just different types of circles on them. So there's lots of options there. And so we're going to do this kind of in steps because we want to make sure that our work is nice and neat and not all smeared together if we try to do it all at once. So our first step is going to be obviously getting some rocks together. Some of you may already have some, but I have a few rocks that I just got out of my yard, and I did give them a little rinse off in the sink and let them dry because the paint won't stick very well if your rocks are dirty. And so some hints about choosing rocks. If they're smoother, they're going to be easier to paint. If they're very, very rough, lots of texture to them, then it's going to be a little bit trickier to paint those types of rocks. And so I'm going to put these right over here. I'm going to move these rocks over here so we have some workspace. Some other hints that I have, or some things that you will need, is some type of paint. And the paint that I always use is this acrylic paint that just comes in a little bottle. And I just have 3 colors here. But if you just even had 2 colors, imagine if I just had red and white. I could use red, I could use white, and what happens if we mix these 2 together? We get pink, right? So I would already have 3 different colors that I could use for my rocks. If you have another color or multiple colors to add in, that's absolutely great too, but you can make 2 colors work for this. All right, and so the next thing I want to think about is protecting my workspace. And so there's a couple ways to do this, and this is very, very important. Acrylic paint will not wash out of your clothing, so make sure that you don't have on your nice clothes, or you have a smock or some kind of old shirt on top, and it will be very difficult to get out of off of furniture. It's not going to come out of your carpet. So if you are using this paint, make sure that you're in a location where it's easy to clean up and it's very well protected. So I sometimes use old newspaper that I can put down on my surface. Another thing that I do, if I have a paper plate laying around, that's a really great way to protect my surface, and it makes it easy when I need to let my rocks dry. If I'm in a space where I need to use it for something else, I can just pick this up and move it to a different location so it's not in the way until it dries. All right, so I have these rocks here, and I forgot to mention this, but some of you might have acrylic in a tube, and this will work too. When it gets time to our designs, if you're going to do the dots, then you might want to thin it out a little bit, but we'll talk about that when we get to the next step. So, but this is absolutely fine for putting a base coat on just as it is. And so what I'm going to do, I'm going to look at my rocks and decide which side that do I want to put my designs on. This one I think is smooth on both sides. I'm going to just leave it like that. This one too, kind of a tie. And this one is more bumpy on this side, and so I think this would be a better side to paint. This is also a more interesting color, so I might decide to just leave this one kind of brown and not put a base coat of paint on it. We'll put that one over there. This one also, with being dark like this, if I decided I like that, I could leave it alone too, but maybe we'll paint that one. We'll see. And so what I'm going to do, I'm going to go with red as a base coat maybe on this rock here. And so I'm going to give this a shake because my paint's a little bit old and I want to make sure that it's not separated. So even if you have new paint, it might have been sitting on the shelf for a while. So give it a good shake. I'm going to do this off camera so I can give it a really good shake. And I am not going to squeeze this paint into a different container first right now. I'm going to go with this rock and I'm going to put a little blob, not too much, right on top. It's always easy to add more if I didn't have enough. See, and my brush has been soaking in the water because I used it for something else. So, and for this, I don't want my paint very thin down. So I'm going to dry my brush off. You can see I already had some red on it. I didn't wash it very well because I knew that I was going to use the same color. All right, so I'm just going to paint a base coat on this rock. Kind of like, sometimes this is kind of funny, but I think about it as if this rock was a cookie and I'm putting the frosting on top, so I don't have to really coat the entire thing if I don't want to. If you do want to paint both sides, let's say I wanted this entire rock to be solid red, I would paint half of it and let it dry, and then I would turn it over and paint the other side. I got a little too much paint here, so my solution for that, I'm going to try to scoop off this extra and put it on this one, and then we'll add a little white and make that one pink. How about that? So I'm going to slide, and I want this as smooth as I can get it, so just going over. If you don't have a paintbrush but you have paint, if you have a Q-tip or something laying around, that will work too. So I'm going to just lay my paintbrush down right here, and let's see if we can give the white paint a little shake. And I'll put a little blob of white, and we'll see what kind of pink we get. All right. And if I wanted that a little lighter, of course I could put a little bit more white, but I'm going to leave it just like this because I think that's going to be a pretty good amount of paint to get this one a nice base coat. And I sometimes try to make, I'm going to try to carefully pick this up so I don't get it all over my hands. See how that rough edge is? Sometimes I try to get my edge a little bit smoother, but you don't have to worry about that. If that bothers you and you have a rough edge, you could put some designs along your edge. So let's see if I can get over here. Sometimes it's a little bit tricky. And I'm going to pick this one up again. And you really don't want to get a lot of acrylic paint on your hands. It won't hurt you, but if it dries on there, it's sometimes kind of hard to get off. So I'm just trying to be pretty careful. I'm kind of a messy artist sometimes, so you might be a little bit neater than me. All right, so we'll go ahead and put that one down. And I'm just going to go with these two right now. I might paint another surface off camera. We'll see, just to have it ready for the second step. But I want to give you some time to get some base coats on your rocks that you would like to paint. And another quick hint about our second step here is to add our designs, we're going to be using anything that you can make kind of a dot with. And so some things I've gathered that we'll work with next time. I have some pencils. This one has a pretty good just circle flat here, little point here. This pencil, the eraser doesn't work very, oops, I realize you can't see that very well. So this eraser makes black smudges all over my drawings, so I thought I would use that for a painting tool. And so I'm going to use that. Of course, check with a grown-up and make sure that you're allowed to use these things for painting. You can usually rinse them off, but just to make sure you're not messing something up, you shouldn't. But so I have some pencils that I can use to make dots with. If you want to use the end of a crayon, you can use that. We can even use the back of a paintbrush. This is a little bamboo skewer thing that for food, actually, and I just happen to have that laying around, so that could make a little circle. Let's see what else. Oh, now I don't know how many of you have hot glue sticks around, but this would make a great circle. So I have that. So any kind of things that you have laying around that you can make some different sizes of circles with. Again, Q-tips work very well. So maybe you could spend some extra time if you finish putting your base coat on, gathering up some things for the next step that we will find out about how to add these designs to our rocks. Don't forget to close your paint up nice and tight when you're done. And wash your paintbrushes out. If you let your acrylic paint dry in your paintbrush, you will ruin it if you used a paintbrush. So make sure you clean those very nicely. And I will see you next time.